Next on the calendar is CR 2019-8197, State of Idaho versus Marshall Dee Hendricks, who joined us in court today for what I understand to be a change of plea. And the court responded to the party's request to conduct this proceeding in person. And I understand that it felt the comfort level needed to proceed in this way, understanding that we would practice appropriate social distancing and the protocols in place for in-court proceedings. I appreciate counsel's accommodation to do so. I recognize that the court has been handed an amended prosecuting attorney's information along with the plea agreement. And those counsel that are joining us include Counsel Clark, Spencer, and Randall. Mr. Hendricks, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm here, Your Honor.
I understand that there's been an agreement that has been reached. Would you like me to go through the terms as the court sees them, and I'll verify whether these are your understandings? Okay. So as the court looks at the plea agreement, it states that you would be pleading guilty to the amended charge of voluntary manslaughter and the use of a deadly weapon in the commission of that offense. That you agree to pay full restitution on these offenses, and at sentencing, the state will limit its recommendation to a total of a unified sentence of 25 years, with 10 years being fixed, concurrent with any other unsatisfied sentences currently being served by the defendant. And perhaps at the appropriate time, the parties could enlighten the court as to what those may be. It certainly could be either now or at the time of the sentence. It also contains a provision that this agreement is not binding upon the court. And do you know what that means?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you share with me in your own words what you think that means?
I believe it means that if the courts decide that they don't feel comfortable with it, that they can retract from that.
Yes, I think that is an adequate explanation of the provision. Let me just add to that to some degree. Each of the parties will come to the sentence with their own recommendations, and you just heard the court describe what the maximum is that the state would argue for. And as I understand the terms of the agreement, you're free to argue for a sentence that you deem appropriate. I'm not bound to follow the terms of the agreement, but I'll exercise discretion in fashioning the sentence. And if you did not like that sentence that the court imposed, you would not be entitled to withdraw your guilty plea on that ground alone.
Yes, sir.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
And I'm looking at the electronic signature of you that was likely a copy. Is that your signature on the fourth page of the agreement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And consistent with the terms that you've negotiated with the state, is it your wish to enter a guilty plea today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel, do you want to set forth the work that's gone into the representation?
Your Honor, we requested and received the discovery in this particular case. We actually received this case from another attorney. We didn't originate, we weren't the original attorneys on the case, but we felt like we've done our due diligence reviewing that discovery as well as meeting with Marshall. Marshall I found to be very lucid, understood what was going on, understood what his responsibilities were under the law and to this court, as well as his rights. We addressed those. We reviewed the witness statements as well as other medical statements with respect to potential defenses. We had a mediation on this case last week with Judge Pickett. The mediation was fruitful and resulted in this plea agreement. I feel like, Your Honor, although Marshall today is very apprehensive, I think it's just a little bit overwhelming for him. We feel like he does know what he's doing and he's ready to go forth, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk to now place you under oath and ask you a number of questions, Mr. Hendricks.
If you'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give in this pending cause shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
I see.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Marshal Dee Hendricks,
And how old are you?
I am 31, sir.
How far were you able to go in school?
I was able to graduate from high
Do you have any difficulty reading, speaking, or understanding English?
school. No,
Are you currently on probation or parole?
I am currently on parole.
Okay, and this might be a good time for some clarity on the terms of that agreement. I don't know if you or your counsel or even the state's attorney wants to share with the court. It would be helpful for me to just have a sense as to what it is that you're currently under an obligation on the previous sentence.
He has a previous sentence, Your Honor, and we believe he may have up to 3 years left to serve on that sentence. However, if he's given credit for the time that he served, it'll be a lot less, as well as for street time. He hasn't had the parole hearing on that yet, but the maximum that he would receive on that would be 3 years. Marshall does expect to receive additional credits and time for that, so it may not be a total of 3 years, but that would be the outside. And we'll provide more information on that when we go to sentencing.
Thank you. And so you understand, and if the court is tracking appropriately, by pleading guilty today, it may subject you to a violation that may result as no more than 3 years. Is that fair to say?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes.
Are you under the influence today of any alcohol, drugs, or controlled substances?
No, sir.
And are you suffering today from any mental health or psychological challenge?
No, sir.
Okay. Have you had enough time with your attorney to discuss this case?
I believe so.
Have you shared with him everything that he would need to know in order to assist you?
Yes.
And have you had access to the discovery in this case, which includes all of the police reports or statements by others?
The majority of, sir.
And if there is anything outstanding, are you comfortable in relying upon your counsel for that review?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anything that you have asked your attorney to do that he has not yet done for you?
No, Your Honor.
And are you fully satisfied with his representation?
I am.
Did anyone pressure or coerce you into this plea?
No, sir.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Has anyone suggested that there would be a definitive outcome at sentence?
No.
And no one, I hope, has offered you a reward to plead guilty.
No, Your Honor.
Do you think it's fair for me to conclude that you're pleading guilty under your own free will and choice?
Yes.
The fact that you are on parole tells me you likely have gone through a pre-sentence investigation process. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
We'll be doing it again on this case. May I get your cooperation?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're going to be waiving a number of constitutional rights? And many of those rights are found in that written plea agreement that you signed. I want to go over a couple of additional ones with you. Do you understand that you'd be giving up that right to have a trial by a jury?
Yes.
And you'd be giving up the right to confront witnesses called at such a trial?
Yes.
You'd be losing that presumption of innocence?
Yes.
And since you'll be sharing with me what it is that makes you guilty of the offense, you would thereby be waiving your right to remain silent under the Constitution. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
You'd be giving up any defense that you may have on the case against you.
Yes.
And for a term, you'd be ineligible to vote, possess firearms, hold public office, and serve on a jury. Do you understand this as well?
Yes.
Now, do you have any questions either for your counsel or for the court?
No, Your Honor.
Then how do you plead to the amended charge of voluntary manslaughter?
Guilty.
Can you now share with me what it is that makes you guilty of that offense?
Yes. On September 2nd, 2019, I got into a conflict with a friend of mine, and
became scared, and when I seen him reach behind his back, I thought he was reaching for a gun, and I didn't wait for his hand to come back out to be sure, and I shot him, and it killed him.
Okay, thank you. And just to accommodate specifically what is found in the language of this offense, this was done without malice and aforethought and premeditation. Do you accept that?
Yes.
And you've already acknowledged that you took the life of this individual. Is that fair
Yes, Your
to
Honor.
say? And that was done by shooting him with that weapon.
Yes.
This was all in Bonneville County, was it not?
Yes, sir.
Very well. As the court looks over the elements, Mr. Park, is there anything else?
Well, Your Honor, I think we all understand what he's saying, but I think it's appropriate to note that the victim didn't have a weapon when he acted in such a way. And I think it's presumed in a statement, and I think that ought to be clear that he was not acting in a justifiable manner.
Okay. Do you accept, Mr. Hendricks, what the prosecutor has just suggested?
Yes, I do, sir.
Very well. Then, based upon your statements, the court now finds that you have understood the nature of the offense, appreciate the consequences of pleading guilty. There is a factual basis for the plea, and it was made knowingly, freely, and voluntarily. Therefore, the court will accept, enter it onto the record, and set the matter for sentencing. Is there anything unique in the sentencing request from the parties?
Your Honor, we would appreciate a little bit more time on this, just by nature of the fact that we want to do our due diligence and make sure that we give the court an adequate picture. And typically, we were only given a week between the time we received the PSI and the time we got sentencing. We had requested a few weeks so that we can receive the PSI and then adequately prepare for sentencing. Typically, I think what this court does is around 6 weeks.
Yes.
8 weeks, and so we'd probably ask for 8 to 10 weeks.
Okay. It'll be for 8 to 10 weeks if you'll make it known so that the pre-sentence investigator knows to submit it in advance of the scheduled sentencing. And then, would you like me to set aside a couple of hours?
Yes, Your Honor, please.
That'd be fine, Your Honor.
How does April the 26th at 10 a.m. sound?
Your Honor, that's fine with my calendar.
That'd be fine, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. That will be the date for sentencing. Anything further on this case?
Nothing with my calendar.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. You may be excused.